Hi, welcome back everyone. So right now I'm very excited to be able to introduce you to Chloe Macintosh, who is the founder of Comma app and all about sexual wellness, education, exploration, all in this realm. And I'm very excited to have you today.
Thanks,
so thank
Natalie.
you.
Nice,
Thank you.
Nice to be here.
Today I'd love to talk about, I'm going to start off with something just because I think this is where for people who are in long-term relationships, how do you create and help partners have a spark in their life and keep the spark going? Because it's really tough.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I don't know if I have the answers, right? Of course, it's a work in progress, talking to couples and trying things. My approach is always practical. I always believe that if you want to change the outcome, you have to change something you're doing. And one of the places, there's a few things. There is an area within communication. Are you able to openly communicate your desires, your needs, your fears, your triggers, so finding a way that you can communicate that. So I'll talk about a practice around this. The second area is I call it ritualize the relationship, but really it means to do mundane habitual things with more intention and more presence. So if you're going to come home and your partner is in the kitchen and you're just going to grab them and kiss them on the head, it doesn't do very much in the way of sexual tension. It basically normalizes intimate things rather than bring more intimacy into mundane things. So the idea would be much more to reframe consent, and especially embodied consent. How do I know that my actions are going to be received in the way that I'm intending? Because if I want them to notice I'm back, and if I want them to maybe start getting in the mood for a bit more intimacy, then that needs to come through in the way that we are connecting, when we see each other. And I would say the last one...
Just with that one, so give us some suggestions of what could you do or what would you do to reframe that?
So it would be something like, instead of every time that you want to touch your partner, make sure that you know where you're at. Then you know what do you want to transmit.
When you say where you're at, do you mean physically or do you mean...
How do you feel like? So let's say I'm coming home and I'm your partner. I see you.
And two people are coming from two totally different environments in transition mode.
Exactly.
Always dangerous.
So it's that transition. First is, just what are you doing to transition yourself? Yeah. Are you doing anything or are you bringing everything that's happened during the day into the home environment? I sometimes often define the relationship as the space between us, which means that the quality of the intimacy is very much related to how I engage in the space. If I'm not aware of the space and I collapse it by touching you, by just holding you, then there's no tension there because I'm collapsing the space through touch. So the idea is to say there is space between us and I'm going to start being aware of that space, which means when I'm moving towards you, there needs to be eye contact. I need to know whether that's what you want. So using eye contact, also words such as how you feeling, checking where the person is at before you kiss them, approach them, maybe you whisper into their ear, how you feeling? See whether their body relaxes or is like, I had such a tense day, and then it's not going to be well received what you do next. So just slowing down. Very often the steps of intimacy are eliminated because we want to touch. And we think that, always a lot of people say to me, touch is my love language. Okay, but that doesn't mean someone wants to receive it.
Big time.
Your love language, and even if touch is their love language too, in order for touch to be received, you need to be able to accept it. And often we don't realize that even though in our head we're always happy for our partner to come and surprise you and kiss us, the body doesn't work like this. If I touch you like this, you are not really receiving. You are allowing me. See, I touched you and you did nothing because you're just allowing me. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm just showing you something. But your body just had to accept it. There was no real desire and wanting.
Yeah.
So we often look at this very useful tool called the wheel of consent, which basically helps you understand. Maybe you have content around that.
They've been doing that, but please talk about it.
So it's super simple. It's the idea that touch has 4 directions. You can give and receive, but you also can take and allow. And often in relationships, when we are intimate or sexual, we are not really identifying where we're coming from it. You can only receive if you have consented to it. Otherwise, you are merely allowing. Because if I touch you, I'm taking. I've just taken that touch. As I say, you've allowed it because you're not pushing me away, which is mostly what happened in relationship. I had a client who was saying to me that her partner touches her breast and it's really difficult for her, but she's not finding a way to communicate because she also feels, well, I'm his wife, I'm his sexual partner, he should be able to touch my breast. But there was just no path for her to get into it. So the reframing of intimacy is that you have to be very intentional. You have to know what that means. What is your intention? When I'm touching your knee here, I just want to show you an exercise. So it's quite clear. But if I started to touch your knee, you'd be like, what does she want? Right? It'll be a little bit more of a question. Actually, the body reacts the same way. So you need the body has to go on the journey of opening up so that it can actually be receptive. And it is also when your nervous system can go in a state where you are able to be present. You are no longer checking everything is safe because now you have agreed you can receive. So it happens at cellular level, it happens at emotional level, psychological level, regardless of how long you've been with a partner. Yes, it may be safe and you don't think you are going to be in danger if they touch you. But if you want to increase intimacy, to increase arousal, sexual tension and sensitivity, the more you embodied consent, the more you really touching them when they want it. Let them feed back to you if they want more by turning their body. There's a whole language of the body. If I touch you and you're not moving, not even just slightly relaxing more, then you don't want more. That's it. Don't imagine.
And if you touch someone and you can see them relaxing, because that's the key, you want them to keep relaxing and opening. Then it's saying,
so notice what they're doing. Are they doing more like this? Or are they going more like this? And then when they're going more like this, don't take it they want to be touched in places that they are exposing. That's not always the case. It could be that their body is opening up. Sometimes when a body gets to feel more sexual and turned on, we see it as a sign we need to go faster to the point. It's not. You are just letting that energy open you up and you finally, you need to be in that state for longer. So I would say your own emotional hygiene has to happen. You need to come with an energetic field and a nervous system that is vaguely correlated if you're going to go and suggest intimacy with your partner. You need to have conversations about what you want, what you like, and what's working for you. It's really important. And this is sometimes what the work we do, I think, brings conversation. Oh, I was on Kalo and I saw this. Oh, can we try it? So it helps to have these resources that if we don't have education, we don't even feel invited to ask for anything. And then slow down. So, intimacy happens when there is enough space for the energy to surrender to the moment. Otherwise, there's no intimacy. And building intimacy in the space, which is that if I had an argument with you yesterday and I'm still resentful about it in some way, but I really want to have sex with you and I'm going to come up to you, well, it's likely this is going to show up at one point. Rather than have a separate practice where you are having a kind of conflict resolution, you create a safe space, you sit in front of each other, you use a talking stick, and you say, okay, well, that's what's on my heart, and hand on heart always with those things. You're not blaming, you're not accusing, you're not staying by you, you're saying, I feel this, that's how I'm experiencing this. Then the other person isn't supposed to reply or justify themselves. They just say thank you, and then they get the chance to say what's on their heart. And all you need to do is take that with you and reflect on it. And see, that's how they experience this. that's interesting, rather than trying to justify it. And I didn't mean this. That's not what I wanted. It doesn't matter at that point.
No, because
it's
what
happened.
they're feeling is real.
Exactly.
That's the only thing that is real, not the story that you're projecting.
Yes.
And so these guys will have actually gone through and they've done some exercises like this, which is great.
Yes.
Because and you need to keep reminding, because we all need to keep reminding on how to get over these things. It's like, it's retraining.
Yes.
And again, what you're allowing is for an open, honest relationship where you can actually properly bring your whole self to the relationship, and hopefully them, because then that's what keeps the intimacy alive.
Yeah, and one of the ways to do that, if you struggle, is to look at for question lists around sexual preferences and sexual desire. You know, for example, one of the things that's fun doing with your partner is to kind of document your peak sexual experiences. When you had a great sex, when was it? What was it?
That's great.
Were there specific things that happened that made it that way? And try not to focus on the person that you were with, because that could be triggering, but more so how you felt and why it was so good. And, you know, you're in nature, it was this, it was anonymous. Sometimes things that are not recreate, you can't recreate this in a relationship. But it's important because also, I mean, one of the ways that I think can really help as well is to have a non-sexual intimacy ritual, which would mean that, again, we are going to be focusing on touch and relaxation and arousal and pleasure. But there is no, I'm wanting to get you anywhere, or we're doing this so we're going to have sex. And actually that's more of an evening ritual where you will take 10 minutes each, and one person will be touching the other and getting feedback around how they like it and how they want it. And then you do the same. Could be a butt massage, could be breast massage, could be an ice thing, could be anything.
Totally.
Like
having fun.
Playground.
Play, exactly. Play, have fun. I think, again, these guys have been recommended to do these things. And again, you can't do it enough in some ways.
Because often it's the quality of the intimacy that's non-sexual that has the biggest impact on the sexual intimacy.
Would you say, is that for all sexes?
Yeah, well, it depends how we're having sex, because it's easier, I would say, you know, there's a more mechanistic approach to sex where we are working with the pleasure system in a way, and with the male genitals, yes, through certain stimulation, they can achieve pleasure. For women, it's not always so easy, or it's a little bit more complex. So this is really when you are going into sexuality where you really want your partner to explore themselves and go deeper. And you are also being a giver to their pleasure. And sometimes that means that you have to, you know, let go of some of the ways that work for you because they don't work for your partner. Remembering as well that in a relationship, having your self-pleasure practice is essential. That your arousal and your pleasure is your responsibility. Now, it's important because as women, sometimes we believe that great sex is going to happen to us when we meet this perfect lover who's just going to, like, you know, open our body and we're going to meet God or something, you know, and we wait for that to happen to us.
Don't wait.
And then they are loaded with expectation of delivering something, which obviously gets them all stressed out, and then they develop dysfunctions at the back of it, which is very, very common. So just take responsibility. Do you know your body? Do you know your pleasure? Can you guide someone towards the thing that feel good? Are you able to not be in your head because you have enough capacity to be in your pleasure when you are with a partner? And it's a little bit more like a dance where there isn't a giver and a receiver, or a top and a bottom, or someone who's, again, a misleading idea or myth that the best sex is when you're lying on your back doing nothing, which is not really the case. You know, it will be more if you are constantly moving, your spine is active, you're activating the pelvic floor, you're using the breath, you are touching, you are smelling, you are really involved. That's where sex becomes more of like, it doesn't matter who you're having it with, or whether it's the same gender, or if it's a mix of people, because you're now focusing first on the experiences in your own body. And then you're using movement, breath, and voice as a way to guide your partner towards your pleasure. And this is really important for the male population, who I find is often very muted in the bedroom. struggle to express their pleasure, or maybe they express their pleasure at the end when they have an orgasm, but we don't hear men moan that much. And I sometimes say that 50% of their pleasure is me moaning, and I know that.
Yes, 100%.
So we're missing out on not only the arousal that comes with someone else enjoying what we're doing to them, but also the guidance.
Yeah, completely.
Right?
Yeah. We can't read their minds.
You don't know where they're at.
We don't know 100%.
So then, again, another opportunity to get stuck into your head.
Yeah. So that is the voicing that you're talking about. It's actually just hearing their feelings.
It could be something like, it doesn't have to be screaming. Totally. Just, it could be deep, like exhaling deeply. Exactly.
Like just an appreciation.
And getting into the rhythm.
Yeah.
So that you actually, and then sometimes I feel that if you are not making any sound, it's sometimes because you're stuck in your head.
Completely. So you're holding it all there.
Then you know
holding something. Yeah.
If someone is, and of course, we can't generalize. Some people don't want to make sound. It's too exposing. But one of the big shifts that happened to me is when I incorporated, that brought the sound into my masturbation practice. Because as much as I knew I'm making sound during sex, it never occurred to me to make sound when I was self-pleasuring.
Right.
I don't know why. I just didn't really think it was. And actually, it was when I did that and I started to. And there's also this great Taoist practice, which is a laughing practice, which is one of the best way to kind of.
Laughing.
Wakes up the vagus nerve, goes into parasympathetic.
It's amazing.
It's very good.
Never thought about it in combination.
Yes, I have also a practice where you do it before you go. So you do it standing and you're just laughing with all the different, energetic center.
Yeah.
Changes the sound. It also starts to attune you with the fact that high sounds are more heady.
Yep.
And low sound are more body.
Yep.
So again, the sound can tell you where they're at. It's like really like an instrument.
Yeah.
We can attune to each other. We can synchronize breath. We can guide someone towards lower sound by making those lower sound, helping them drop into their body by making those lower sounds. And if you look at porn, the sounds of pleasure, which clearly are not really embodied pleasure, are very, very high.
Interesting. And the breath, doing everything with breath, because that just helps open up everything.
Yes.
I mean, it's so exciting when you sync with the breath and just there's a dance you can do with the breath and the whole thing.
It's so simple with the breath.
Yeah.
We know it's the number one tool for performance in any discipline, like whether it's musicians or dancers or athletes. And when it comes to sex, we hold our breath when something good happens.
Yeah. That's crazy. Okay, so there's also, I think you brought up something in Pleasure and Intimacy 1, which if you haven't done it, you can do it. But you talked about the importance of masturbating, but together.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, sometimes, I'm being asked, okay, what can we do to learn more about each other's pleasure?
And also, I think we were bringing it up in the context of almost making things safer for each other and feeling more confident in the whole experience, because it's very exposing, and we haven't gotten into anything like that graphic in this journey quite yet, but that's probably the most exposing in some ways.
It can be very exposing.
Because it's not hidden by doing it to someone. It's it's now you servicing yourself in front of each other.
And witnessing someone in their pleasure is a very intimate thing.
Yeah. And allowing you being the person allowing someone to witness you.
Yes, exactly. It's all very vulnerable, and often with sexual liberation, which I'm hoping everyone is up for, it comes with identifying that where there's shame, we need to go.
Yeah.
Where there's fear, we need to go.
Yeah.
Where there is pain, we need to go. Where there is numbness, these are the pointers. So if being naked in front of your partner, or going to the loo in front of your partner, or touching yourself in front of your partner is difficult, then I'm not saying just the aim is to just do that. The aim is to try to go closer to an experience where you feel comfortable. So for example, you could start with masturbating under the duvet. So you're both under the duvet, you're touching yourself, it feels good, you're clearly turned on because they're touching themselves. And then that could be phase one, of doing a kind of shared masturbation practice. Then you could do it where the light is very dark and you're in a corner and it's like, oh, you're touching yourself now, maybe you're sitting over there and I'm sitting over here, and then eventually find a way to it. Sometimes we hear of a practice and then feels very far away from what we would do. So there are steps towards that. You can decide how many steps you need in order to feel comfortable. And also, it's important this is being discussed together, because you may be ready to go an adventure in that place, but it might just put your partner even in more shame, because now it's obvious they're not where you're at, they are not able to do it, and that might create more of a rejection than an acceptance. So again, the communication still remains, I think, one of the most powerful tools, beside the practices and techniques. It's going to be how transparent can you be that actually this is really difficult, and so how can we creatively find a way that maybe you do it on the phone the first time, you're touching yourself and sharing how you feel, and in long-term relationships often this practice is not something that is easy.
No.
Right?
I was going to say, I kind of jumped into the deep end. I'm like, okay, let's talk about the most difficult thing you can do with a partner. But it's also, I think, talking about how important it is also to be able to talk about your vulnerabilities. Because that's also knowing from me, not to be too personal, but having come from abuse in the background, it makes those things much more difficult.
Yes.
And so, but at the same time, if I can express and be open and know that I am safe to be open with him in my discomfort of it or whatever I've had to go through, it makes me safer, which makes me open up more, which makes me able to receive more. So if we can both do that for each other, that's where the real intimacy comes, and it's not just so transactional. It's like we're learning and we're growing together, and I'm not judging you, you're not judging me. It's all okay to be compassionate with each other and ourselves with whatever we're at. It doesn't matter. And that this is just a journey of exploration and fun to have together, if you feel comfortable, when you feel comfortable, and it feels safe.
Yes, and I believe that is rare.
Yeah, it is rare.
It's more rare than it's common. Even
totally
in
agree.
Very healthy relationships where they're
hard.
really healthy and there's only good intention and it's a healthy, balanced relationship. When we come to sexual openness, that's when we struggle the most.
Yeah.
A lot of great relationships actually don't talk about this or don't have conversation about sex outside of maybe when they're in it or even maybe while they're in it. It's not being discussed. So again, this is a path of transformation of our culture.
Yeah.
It's pioneering.
Yes.
Something that's not common.
And it's one step at a time, one gentle step at a time. And both Chloe and I are very passionate about trying to help people understand the importance of being able to be more open in our sexuality and feeling more safe in intimacy, because we were talking about it in P&I 1, how important it is it's our life force. Our sexual energy is our life force. And if we can master it and if we can own it, it is a really beautiful, intoxifying, amazing. I mean, it's the ultimate, but it needs to be done in a really beautiful, sacred way.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think we need to make that step forward, because it's going to take too long for things to change. For school to give proper, not just sex education, but pleasure education to our children, for parents to feel comfortable talking about sex, pleasure, nudity at home, for institutions or big tech platform to really address this topic with intelligence. Yeah. So I think it's very much a grassroots movement. Yes. We need to want more and remember that the limitations are constructed.
Completely.
The body doesn't have.
And it's okay.
And it's okay. Yeah.
And we're starting the conversation and we're planting the seed. And that's the most important. So planting the seed. So going back to when you're thinking about relationships and cultivating the intimacy in order to be able, let's talk about being able to achieve orgasmic pleasure and what that means in a couple, how one can do it, but also the limitations and how it works.
Yeah, so I think actually it will be interesting to talk a little bit about orgasms and the orgasmic state and the types of orgasmic experience we're talking about. Because again, because we reduce the sex to the genitals, we also reduced orgasm to a very specific type of a very specific way that the system gets to be operated. Mm-hmm. When we start to move away from sexual energy being limited to the genitals and being conditioned by an orgasm, and we play with edging and we become more sensitive, then orgasms are going to take a new shape. You are first going to go into a state of relaxation, which is essential because it is parasympathetic dominant, even though there is, of course, sympathetic, aspects in the orgasmic and the pleasure. You really is when you are fully relaxed that the orgasm can take its inertia. And taking its inertia would be that it's not just squeezing it where it's being stimulated, but it's much more expanding it away from that specific point and into the rest of the body. So sometimes now I hear we talk about energetic orgasms as a way to kind of define this state. And this is the idea that every cell in our body is orgasmic. Every part, you can orgasm from any part of the body, ear, breast, neck. And for some people that sounds just completely random, and it was for me very random too. And I'm not saying that I can achieve this from any part of my body at all, but again, knowing
something we're working towards.
Something you always work towards, and mostly reframing my belief.
Exactly.
This was the first step for me, is to actually know it's possible, because otherwise I'm never going to get there. And then to start really thinking of your kind of sexuality as pleasure exploration, where the orgasmic state is when you're no longer going somewhere. You feel orgasmic in the experience. Whether you stop now, you've still felt orgasmic in that time. And then we go sometimes slowly away from more peak experiences where you have a lot of excitation, pudendal nerve, which is a sympathetic nerve, clitoral and ejaculatory orgasms are that type. They have a peak, they climb up fast, and then they collapse and they have a refractory period. That's a kind of sex for reproduction.
Okay.
That's the mechanics of getting the semen out and being able to release it. When we go into sexuality that does not have these types of release as the goal, we start expanding how much we can experience pleasure. And that comes with retention of energy. So through edging, it can come also through semen retention, which means that you can start playing with not ejaculating every time you have sex and training yourself maybe during masturbation initially to see how that feels. It's very challenging for people to do that. But what it does is as you keep the energy and you don't always release it in that way, you charge your body. And that charge becomes really like an attraction for the other person. It is literally energy. So you start feeling more excited and more attracted to that person because they are holding their energy. They're starting to master being able to not just go towards their desire and almost become codependent to what the end needs to be, but much more present and grounded in their pleasure and able to still be able to be available and feel waves of pleasure. So starting to go, and that's when the pelvic floor really becomes an important tool, because it's by either squeezing to concentrate. So let's say you are not feeling enough pleasure. Well, that's when the Kegels are really important, because as you Kegel, you will start feeling stimulation in that area. That stimulation is going to start building pleasure. Now, if you feel you're about to get off the edge, you start pushing. And as you're pushing, you are spreading the blood flow, you're bringing more blood flow, you are calming the area, and you're spreading sensation away from the points of stimulation.
So you're spreading it out.
So you're spreading it, pushing, and then you need more again. You breathe, and you squeeze, you increase sensation, you take a deep breath and you push, you are relaxing the system so you can take more.
Beautiful.
So it's really starting to bring this. And again, what happened to me when I started to learn about this, I got in my head with it. So it's also important as you're learning about your own sexuality, different practices and technique, to not get too like held up by it, because you'll end up saying, oh, I need to squeeze, I need to push, no, I need to, So it's more, that's why the practice outside of sex is important, because it accustoms your body to those different mechanics that you're not usually doing. In breathing in the belly with the pelvic floor is not something that you have a habit of. So you build a habit, so you become more embodied with this practice, which means that when you are in the act, the body knows what to do. You need to think less about it. If you're only using it while you're having sex, then you have to think how to use it in that moment. So the daily practice of deeper belly breathing, fire breaths, pranayama, like bringing the pelvic floor online, is maybe 10 minutes a day. I do 10-15 minutes a day every day. I do a breath, like 4 different breaths that help me focusing, keeping my pelvic floor, and also pelvic floor activation. It helps with lubrication. So when you go into perimenopause, or when you have cycle change in life, or you have stress, sometimes it can dry out. And these practices just they like maintenance.
Amazing.
They help you prevail things. Also, as you know, wellness is about. Doctor in the East, they get in trouble if you get a disease. They're supposed to help you not get the disease.
No, but of course, because if you you're mastering your energy. And when you master your energy, and you master it down there, where so many organs are connected, and you're able to heal that area, and then you are able to take that energy and expand it throughout the body, which is the ultimate. That's when it's like, whatever. But you get to play with it. You become so much more aware of it.
And it's exactly what you're saying. Like, the energy goes, when the mind goes, awareness is a tool to awaken. If you don't have presence or sensitivity, you cannot be there.
No.
What are you going to hold on to? It's still a thought. So the physical practice, the presence, the interoceptive awareness. So interoceptive awareness is actually a super important shift also that I was not aware of. And this is the idea that if you see this, there's 2 ways you can interpret this. There is my finger touching my arm, and that can be very sensual. That can already kind of, make me feel a particular way. Interoceptive awareness is actually my arm receiving the touch. It doesn't matter who touches it. I'm focusing only on receiving the sensation and how that. And so one of the great practice you can do, again, is to do this to yourself. You can do it to your foot. You can do it to your ear. You can do it and you go from, I'm feeling from my fingers. So my fingers are touching the hair, the warmth. I'm almost like investigating my skin. And then I'm doing the same, and now I'm focusing just on my arms. I'm completely forgetting that my fingers are touching it. I'm focusing on what I'm receiving. I'm receiving warmth. I can feel the sensation. That's the major shift in pleasure. Because we are so conditioned by visual stimulation. The idea of you touching me is what turns me on, is what gives me pleasure. And we don't have interoceptive awareness, enough of it to actually focus on receptiveness. And so then it's very hard for us to stay present. So this practice is really nice to do when you have nothing better to do, if you're on the phone, if you're doing even something else. Just constantly touch yourself and see whether you can identify, I'm touching with my fingers, I'm receiving the touch from my, I'm just receiving the touch.
I like that play on your head, because you can either identify with either one of them. And if I just focus on the receiving, it's pretty powerful.
I have a practice on the app that's a hand practice. It's really amazing that you do to yourself, and it really helps realizing how much sensation there is if you focus on the receiving part.
So much. Completely. At Kayla, we have this thing called Awaken, Connect, Transform. And awaken is step number 1. That's literally about awakening all your senses. And so it's really about connecting. Okay, so when we think about, again, in partnership, and these guys have been doing a bunch of different sort of tools and games and playing, what would you say? And then we've been talking about orgasm and the fact of not expecting anything. Expectations, because I think that's a big one also, because that plays a lot on the head, where we need to work so much on getting just into the presence of the being in the body, and not getting fixated on the outcome as a success.
Well, to be honest, until I knew that you could just have pleasure that's orgasmic, and that orgasm was, yes, of course, a part of it, but can also not be everything all the time, then it changes your optic. You start realizing there is more to investigate than the outcome. It's quite difficult because for a lot of people, the orgasm is when they have the pleasure.
Yeah.
And so again, it goes hand in hand with developing sensitivity for the body, allowing for more pleasure, training yourself to be able to hold more pleasure, so that pleasure becomes your focus. If you don't have enough pleasure, then the orgasm becomes your focus.
Right, and by knowing yourself and how you receive your pleasure more, that allows you to be able to focus better on how to get the pleasure you need.
Yeah, and staying there, you know, because as we know, the experience happens when we're present, and as soon as you are thinking of the orgasm, you're not here anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's very difficult because I think men also sometimes think that they need to make their partner orgasm before they can have one, and there is this idea that to make people satisfied, it needs to happen in that way. I think it could be interesting as an exercise for couples to say 1 week without orgasms and just see what happens. You will fail because of course it's very hard, and you'll want to just, especially as it will work, you will get more excited, and you will have more, then it'll be harder. Yeah. But again, the idea is the game of like, how can we actually and then be kind of accountable for each other, you know, and teasing and letting people at the highest point of their pleasure, let them just leave them there, you know, let them sink in it.
Oh, that's tough.
But that's where playfulness and maybe role play and scheduling time and making an adventure out of it and elevating. Yes. You know, elevating sexuality as a hobby.
Yes.
You take a weekend off to go and do the things you like. You know, well, what could you create? Is in a way of an experience that would be focused on that, you know, if you're motivated to do this.
And also something like that that's very realistic is also create a beautiful space, because that also really helps. Like no one thinks about it. You create a beautiful environment, so you're almost going into a temple of love and exploration and play.
I mean, again, if that's your thing, then, you know, I think there is an advantage if you are connected with spiritual practices, because sacred sexuality and the sacred union is a really, really powerful tool for relationships. Yeah. Yeah. It's not for everyone, but if you can unite beyond an other, the male, female, you know, relational dynamic, and you are just two human being each other's best healing partners, and you know, making sure that you are co-regulated, and if I'm deregulating you, I need to leave the room because there's no point doing this to each other. Like these sacred union, they allow you to really shift your relational dynamic and make it last much longer than maybe sometimes with long-term relationship. It worked at the beginning, so we didn't really put too much effort into it, and then it doesn't work anymore. And that often could be with the children, and we're like, but it's because of the children. And then we come on the other side of that, and that's when we really realize there is so much distance, you know, from what intimacy feels like in the relationship. And they need to, and my point is, honestly, nothing is ever lost.
No.
If you have a desire to continue to be with that person, you will be able to have, you know, abilities, and there are tools and there are ways that you can completely transform a relationship that was all about attraction and early stages and being in love.
Hot.
And then nothing during children, and like the separation from the body. Sometimes for women, they just don't have desire. And then being able to go back into it with a new setup, you know, a new intent. I've seen it happen a lot, you know, more and more.
Sacred union is a really beautiful thing. Like, especially as you're getting older, and we talk about long-term relationships, it's an amazing thing to be able to kind of step into, because it's so profound.
Yeah, it's so almost essential if you're going to be sharing that much time with someone.
100%, because then you both grow.
Yeah.
And you're both expanding onto a whole nother level. And I always say, you're also getting ready for transitioning into the next lifetime in some ways, because you're experiencing things on such a bigger on a bigger level.
And if that's not for you, I've seen also other things, like opening relationships and there's lots of other ways that we can shift and transform. But at the end of the day, you have to have a very honest, reflective space, because if you start going towards this, it will only make it harder. So it can be more magical, can be a total awakening, positive things can happen. But if you don't have that very, very clear ways that you can share with each other, be honest, be vulnerable, say no. It's very important.
Know your boundaries.
Know your boundaries.
So important if you start dancing into that world. What would you say for, just going back to on the sort of getting yourself ready, let's say you want to get into that orgasmic state or you're struggling with it, what would you say is sort of like your to-do list, or like not to-do list, but like kind of the key pointers that you would say, okay, these are things that you've got to really kind of consider if you want to? Because I would say more people are not, when I think about this journey in particular, I think probably a lot of people do struggle with orgasms, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people struggle with orgasm, or they have one way that they know they can orgasm in a reliable way.
Yeah.
And then they have memories of times in their life when they had this amazing orgasm. I think it was the G-spot, or maybe it was cervical, but they never been able to grab it again.
Yeah.
They actually don't know really how it happened, but it happened. So they know their body is capable. And I have to say, the breath and pelvic floor, I found, it has the most impact on expanding your orgasmic landscape and starting to go into other types of orgasm. I would say limiting the use of pornography in your self-practice. I would say most of the things you want to achieve in your relationship, I would actually address them as an individual.
Yeah.
Because then you know what you're doing in that way. And it's much easier to bring that into the union rather than the frustration that you're not having the orgasm that you want and kind of expect your partner to try and find that for you, which is also very difficult. I mean, it can happen, but it's not all fair to do it. So I would say taking it to your own hands, buy a wand, so a non-vibratory tool that's either marble, glass or metal, and start really investigating yourself. Use the breath, use some of those practices. We also have probably going to do a guided meditation masturbation, which is quite a good way to integrate the tools, because it's like you listening to, in this case, me guiding you into your body, how to breathe, how to edge, how to explore. And that just allows you to not have to think about it. So internal exploration is going to be really important, and fingers are really important in the self-pleasure practice. Sometimes we differ because one, it's not always practical to stimulate where we want to be stimulated on our own, position, etc. So there's a practical element. But there are some really good toys out there that are designed for self-pleasure and that are really designed, I would say, for a more holistic health and, not a vibrator. Right. That's kind of hacking you towards pleasure, using the pleasure mechanics as a trigger for the outcome.
Yeah, which can desensitize you, right?
It does a few things. Yeah. On one hand, I always say, if that's how you can orgasm, that's great. No one should take this away from you or shame you or anything, because whatever, I'm so happy that, me, it's how I discovered my orgasms in my 20s. I was a bit desperate because I couldn't have one with a partner. I didn't know how to have one on my own, and I ended up going, when I moved to London, I ended up going to Soho and buying a few sex toys, and I was just sat with myself, and eventually, because the mechanical aspect, then it happened. At least I now knew, okay.
It gives you the feeling, it's a good intro.
I have it, the point would be mix it up, use your fingers. Don't use vibration on the one point that's most sensitive, i.e. the clitoris gland. Try to see how it feels when you putting the vibration even in the belly. You'll see how much it stimulates you, because again, the clitoris is internal on the lips, and make sure that this is an exploration, not a niche that you're trying to scratch. And so those non-motorized toys, they give you a bit more space to explore. The voice is going to be really, really important.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the keys because the shame, the release, the body listens to you. If you say it feels good, the body's like, oh. And there is a lot of very interesting work in the world of hypnotism as well, where you talk into an orgasm.
Okay.
Yeah.
You talk into an orgasm.
You talk into an orgasm through hypnosis, and your body goes into full process. And you can have complete energetic orgasm that feel very much that...
And you yourself are talking into it?
So you usually have someone doing it to you, but you can learn to also somewhat use the mechanics of hypnotism to trick your body to believe that it's happening to you, where you say more pleasure. Me sometimes, when I'm in my pleasure practice, I'm like, more pleasure in my head, more pleasure. It works.
Beautiful, beautiful, because again, we are our thoughts.
Yes.
We are our thoughts. So that's why you have to be so careful about going back into your head, because most likely we go back into our head and it's negative thoughts.
Yes.
But if we can go back into our head and retrain it to be focusing on helping us achieve the positive, then it's awesome. Then the brain is working for us.
Yeah, exactly. And it's more powerful than we think. So the voice and the initial...
And so the voice is like us just being able to like really, it's also hearing us. Like it's like bringing the voice, the breath, and the body in connection to the whole thing.
It's primal, so it connects with strong primal cues.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so it really taps into that.
Chloe, I know you talk a lot about sexual tension. So what do you mean by that?
So this is quite important because in long-term relationships, sometimes the tension collapses because of the familiarity and the comfort. Right, so there's no more novelty, there is no more provocation, we are in a safe place, right? So that's the extreme side, pleasure and arousal in particular needs a little bit of provocation in order to really be alive. So in long-term relationship, what's important is to create tension, to be able to build energy in the space, and that is done through polarities.
Okay, so how do you do that?
So polarities is identifying that a type of energy that you embody, like now you're in a very pretty girl position, that might make me want to come more into my masculine.
Okay.
If you're walking around the kitchen, you've had a big day, you are talking about work, it's probably not going to facilitate for me to fall into my masculine as your partner.
Yes.
So again, awareness for that. Are you going into your feminine? Because the polarity in a classic heteronormative couple, which I'm generalizing for that, usually you would want your masculine partner to be the one holding the energy to themselves, being grounded, being very much full of desire, and very much showing you that they want you, but they don't always just act on it.
Okay.
They also let you come to them. So that when you get a chance to be attracted to them. So I always say there is only two sense with attraction. You either pulling or pushing.
Okay.
Right? So if you are like this, you are pulling because you're here in your little feminine position, you're smiling, but you're not coming to me. No. But you are indicating that you are quite open to connect, in some ways. Yeah. So that would be you pulling me towards you. If I come up to you and I start touching you and I'm pushing. Okay. So if you're not in the right place for this, you're going to pull back. Yeah. Because you can only pull back from pushing. And you can only push towards someone who's pulling away. Okay. So attraction is the game of understanding if I'm pulling back, it gives you a chance to come to me. But if you're pushing onto me, I'm going to have a tendency potentially to go back. Unless you're super hot for it and you're clearly in the mood. But that's obviously not what we're talking about. We're talking a case when that's not there.
Exactly.
And making sure that there is enough space for the person who's not ready to have time to come to them. And one of the biggest, I think, tool for this, again, is non-sexual intimacy, meaning touch, attention, presence, and pleasure. Yeah. That is not led with an expectation towards sex.
Yeah. That's a big one because sometimes it can be subtle. They think they're doing it, but then you can feel it in the end. It's the end. It kills it all. Yeah. So you want to know. You want to actually go, no, just play with me. Just be with me. Yes. And really be here now. Don't be with me because I know you want.
Exactly. And this is why this is a practice. The practice I've mentioned about giving each other pleasure.
It is a real turn on when all of a sudden you are really present. It's so beautiful.
It's the biggest turn
on. It's so exciting. It makes it so much more fun.
Presence with restraint.
Yes.
If you're the one who wants it more than them.
Yes.
And if you don't, then you need to be in a position where you're putting your polarity in a place that's very clear. So if you would like to have more sex, but you're just not feeling it a lot of the time, then practice being in your feminine. Practice being in a place that will make them be more dominant, because that's what's eventually going to attract you to them. So sometimes people say, women say, I can be submissive, but I need someone to be very dominant. Well, you both have to play that game. You both need to go into your feminine, sometimes before the person is ready. They need to know that doesn't mean I'm taking now. She's ready, she's like this.
Yeah.
Well, she seemed very much, no. Letting her be there, flirting, presenting, being around, being aware, being very... taking steps towards intimacy. How are you feeling? Can I touch your shoulder? Would you like a foot massage? Can I give you a butt massage? Offering something that's a bridge.
Yeah.
And see, did they take that well?
And playing. Like that
teasing and playing.
That works. Totally fine.
Leaving little messages.
Yeah.
But showing that you are in full desire, but you also have the mastery to hold back. That really is how you create attraction. If there is kind of mismatched arousal and one person seems to be less up for sex than the other, it's often not the sex that needs to be resolved. It's the intimacy.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk about, because you're just talking about the feminine and the masculine, so what would be another, okay, so I'm now being very feminine and whatnot. What could you give another example, like maybe if we were in the kitchen?
Yeah, so if it's the reverse, if your partner is really stressed, and really the way to shift this is that they need to receive.
Yeah.
You then offer your partner and say, can you just lie down here and I'm going to give you a massage? Well, that's quite dominant. You're now taking the lead.
That's very lovely.
You're the feminine. Doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
They get to be in their feminine, just being given permission to not do anything, to not respond, to not be expected to do anything in return. They also just receiving, and receiving is hard for everyone because receiving means you have to be in presence with yourself, in connection with yourself, and sometimes we get busy doing things for others because it kind of a lot in my retreats, I see this a lot of men just can't receive. So we do practices where they have 6 or 8 hands.
Yeah.
Just giving, they have an overload of people wanting to give them, to break that pattern of not being able and wanting to touch. No, they can't touch, they're just receiving. So that would be another way that you could switch your partner into a place. And then once they're receiving and they feel relaxed, then you could go back into more of you being in a receptive place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing how in our culture today, receiving is the most difficult. Not doing and being is the most difficult thing we can do today.
Yeah, but that's because that's another construct. This is the idea that we're not good enough and we can't help ourselves and we can't save ourselves. Yeah. And so we need a God or someone else, to help us. And I think that's probably the biggest issue we have in the health and wellness culture, is that we think someone else can help us, someone else can heal us. And actually, really, we're starting to know now that it's really relationship to ourselves that can only truly get us better.
That's what we do at Kayla. And it's literally, we have the power to do it, and it's only us who can do it. And that's also where in the sexual stuff is so important, because that energy that we can cultivate and have go throughout our whole body can be so healing and so beautiful.
It makes you feel like you've got enough of what you need. It gives you this empowerment that you can feel this, you can give yourself this.
Yeah.
It changes the way that you are,
You are it. Like, you have that much energy inside of you. That is your life force, and you can use that for anything you want. And when you start being able to master it, it's really, and especially towards healing yourself, which has to happen all the time. Like, you're constantly needing to recheck in, re-heal, even if you've got like a serious illness. Like, it is actually sexual health, using that energy and that Shakti to go specifically towards the areas that need to be healed is phenomenal. Phenomenal. Before we have to go, can you talk us a little bit about, which is something fun that you talk about, is suction sex?
Yeah, so I mean, I called it suction sex because kind of as a counterpart to friction sex. Mm-hmm. And to try and explain that there are different ways that we can interact with the genitals. If we want to have a quick ejaculation and we want to try and procreate, then that, like animals do, then there's a lot of friction because the friction does mechanically release the semen. That's not really the best way for the female body to experience orgasm. And it's also this idea that maybe the penis is more like a tube, but the vagina isn't. The vagina has nothing to do like a tube. Mm-hmm. It doesn't even look like a tube. It's a three-dimensional, complex structure with pleasure points everywhere. And if you go that way into it, you are missing out on almost the entire system. Suction sex is this idea that energy is to be sucked up. Mm-hmm. So instead of like not doing anything with your breath or not doing anything with your pelvic floor and actually not noticing really that that's being interacted with as you are having sex, you're now looking at the pelvic floor, and especially in this case the entrance of the vagina, or it could be also for anal sex, and using the pelvic floor to push and to squeeze. Because when you eat, you don't just shove things down your throat. You're actually just trying to taste, and then you bring it in, and then you eventually take it in. With penetration, it just goes in. It goes too fast, too deep, and often we are not really prepared for it. Totally. And at the entrance of the vagina, there is a series of glands, lubrication glands. There is the G-spot. There is a lot of pleasure that happens there,
so much.
Not in the depth of it.
Yeah.
And again, that can be bypassed. It also connects to this myth that only, if you have a big penis, you can give a woman pleasure, which doesn't help anyone because those kind of size we see in porn are just averagely not related to what's happening in the real world. So it's just almost completely deserving us.
Like everything in porn and size and judging and body types.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this idea would be...
Debunk it all.
Yeah, it's almost like we need to forget everything
totally.
We know.
Everything we've learned out.
Yeah. And now we were doing this. So the section would be that before anything enters you, you need to make contact with it, and it needs to be the body that's receiving, that's going towards what they want. So in a way, if you're the giver or if the one who's penetrating, you should never be pushing in. You should be holding your position and let the body of the person who's then going to get it. And they go to get it by opening, by pushing, and then squeezing. And slowly but surely, they can then bring something in. And in that way, while you also having sex, both people are visualizing the energy going inwards and kind of circulating between them two. So we're not really either being passive or squeezing and holding on to something that makes us feel good and holding our breath and squeezing and in a way of kind of getting an orgasm. We are working between relaxation, pushing the pelvic floor and squeezing the pelvic floor. So using the muscle group in all its direction, a little bit like when you exercise, you can't just do it in only one direction. The advantage of suction sex would be that when you use the pelvic floor properly, you get a chance to engorge. Yeah. Which means that when you push, you're actually bringing the blood flow. When you squeeze, you're restricting the blood flow. Mm-hmm. The blood flow is what brings, the lubrication, because it sweats into the structures, and also the nitric oxide, which is what connects to the nerves, which is what actually allows for pleasure to be felt and communicated back to the brain. So it's very important to have an element of preparation and make sure that you are going into penetration when the two bodies are ready anatomically, i.e. the vulva is looking engorged, it's changed color, it's hot, and it looks like different from when it's not aroused. You then probably could take time at the entrance to stop, which is also another Taoist practice called steaming, where you bring your genitals close to each other, but you don't actually connect initially, and you breathe together. That's beautiful. Which helps the kind of fiery nature of the male body and the watery nature of the female body to equalize and steam.
And also what's beautiful is that you're holding the want for the desire to come up. So it's all of a sudden there's it's
gonna happen.
It just starts creating this want Like, so that energy just in between is just like, wow.
Exactly. So the anticipation also starts building the tension. Then you connect at the entrance, and then you do this motion with your body where you are actually the one, as if you would be eating a banana.
Okay.
Right? Imagine if you're eating a banana, you take a bite, you chew on it, you take a bite. There will be like you bring it in, you bring it in, you bring it in. And then never pushing in, which means that you may have sex with only this much of the penis or this much of the penis. It may not be exactly always what your partner wants, but it may be what's needed for you in that moment. And so be more open-minded with the motions and the ways that you can use the anatomy that is not just based on friction and going as deep and hard as you can, but using it more as a way to explore in all the places that you can, using different positions. And the more you know your body, and the more that you have explored yourself in your self-pleasure practice and discovered your pleasure points with your wand, the more you'll know how to position yourself and actually find the pleasure by moving your body and using the hips, really balancing the hips back and forth, almost like you doing the motion and they doing a lot less. So switching role from they just to hold ground and hold their excitation and master that as a way to magnetize you towards them, and then you use your body and where it feels good inside your body, which they may not know, as a way to guide the experience.
So you're working towards what you want and what you need and what your desires are.
Exactly. And then when you come towards climax and you feel this is feeling really good, you continue to use the pelvic floor, you continue to push, to squeeze, you incorporate these movements so that you're not just accelerating to a point. You actually try to have constant, to stay longer in the same rhythm. Because often I find that, at least for us as women, a lot of the time I realize that as soon as something feels like it's good, there is acceleration. And we'll have it, no, I mean, it's felt good as it was.
Right.
That means I want more of that.
Yes,
I don't want something else.
Yes.
And so staying with it, being able to hold that person in that place longer, i.e. your role as the giver, the person penetrated, would be, I need to hold her into a place of pleasure that does not go into orgasm. How can I get her to a place of maximum pleasure?
Amazing.
And not, and almost tease her away from the release.
Amazing. That's very ultimate. Beautiful. Okay, before we wrap up, is there anything that you would like to tell and share with the group, just thinking about everything we've spoken about, sexual health, well-being, any just last parting moments?
Well, I mean, as a couple, if you want to go on the journey, I think that this is what we do, right? Our work. It allows it's a set of resources. I would say go on an adventure, go to a Tantra workshop, go on a retreat, explore. It's an explorative space. You won't find the answers just by trying it on your own. You might, but why do that? It's a bit like cooking. You have to explore, you have to taste new things, you have to go outside of what you already know. And so I think what's been missing a lot was that we didn't have access to good resource. Pornography was maybe the only resource we had. And now there's more. So when I started researching 20 years ago, I had to search so hard to find anything. But I feel that now, with the platform, etc., that there is an opportunity to just explore, and there is no right or wrong.
No right and wrong. And a lot of compassion, no judgment, and to have so much fun, and to know to put time into it, because it's time well worth spent, because you live once in your body in this lifetime. So enjoy it as much as possible. So you want as maximum amount of pleasure and magic as possible, and understanding your sexual health and well-being, that is the number one way of getting there. So there we go. Thank you, Chloe. Thank you. See you next time.